What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Big Fight Field channel, where we speak the truth, we're honest, and we give our takes on the Philadelphia 76ers. It is Sunday, May 5th. It is Cinco de Mayo today. And today, yes, I talked about this on Thursday's video with the Sixers. We are doing a Sixers season recap video for you here today. This is the last video of the season that I will make for the Philadelphia 76ers. And then obviously they get into off season. And going into this season, I made season predictions. I talked about the first game of the season against the Milwaukee Bucks. I talked about the James Harden trade, the trade deadline, all that stuff. I don't do regular season for the Philadelphia 76ers. Just like I don't do, just like it's not like the Dolphins where I'm breaking down every single game. I don't do regular season for the 76ers because I just simply can't go over every single game from every single night. It's too much. So I just go over big points of the season. But today, we're literally recapping the entire season from the off-season drama with James Harden to Daryl Morey, which is the first thing we're going to talk about, to the Joel injury, to this series with the Knicks, and then what should the Sixers do in the off season. And then the next Sixers video I'll probably make is when free agency happens and there's free agent signings from the Philadelphia 76ers. Hopefully big ones, because I feel like next year is their last chance. Joel Embiid is only getting older, and the teams in the Eastern Conference are only getting better. You're still going to be competing with the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks. Indiana's on the rise, who I think is better than the 76ers. Orlando is on the rise. You still got Cleveland while they have Donovan Mitchell. I still think the Bucks are going to have Giannis and Damian Lillard. So, yeah, there's a lot of teams to compete with in the Eastern Conference still for the Philadelphia 76ers. So we're going to get into it. I hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. To be honest with you, I'm actually feeling better after Thursday's loss in Game 6, which feels weird to say because I was very upset, as I still am. I'm still upset about this loss, but everything happening around is what's making me happy the way I am. And it's the Miami Dolphins with them signing Odell. I'm very happy with that signing, thrilled that Odell is a Miami Dolphin. The Philadelphia Phillies are the best team in baseball. I just saw them. My first game of the season, Friday night at Citizens Bank Park against the Giants. They won 4-3. Last night they won 14-3. So things are going great for the Philadelphia Phillies as they're kicking the shit out of the San Francisco Giants this weekend, which you love to see. So everything going on, it's going great. So it's kind of why I'm feeling more happy than I was Thursday, even Friday, during the day. But I appreciate you guys joining me. Be sure to subscribe to the Big Fight Field channel. We are still going to be doing content here on the channel. We have a lighter schedule now that the 76ers have been eliminated from the playoffs and did not advance to the second round. We will have episode 3 of Chopping It Up here on the Big Fight Field channel, talking all things WWE. And I'm excited to talk about Backlash because I thought that was a fun show for 3 hours yesterday. So if you were wondering where the Backlash review was yesterday, we're going to talk about it on episode 3 of Chopping It Up on Tuesday night. Wednesday night, I'll be back with AEW Dynamite. And then Thursday, the NFL schedule comes out. So the Miami Dolphins, everybody's schedule will be coming out on Thursday. And I will be here Thursday night breaking down the Miami Dolphins 2024 schedule. No season predictions. It's super early. It's way too early. That's not going to happen until before week 1 starts. So, that's next week on the Big Fight Fuel channel. So, without further ado, let's talk about this season. Okay? And we're going to go step by step by step with this one. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the off season. And Daryl Morey was asleep for 3 months. And this goes all the way back to the James Harden drama when the Philadelphia 76ers did not want to pay James Harden a max contract. And James Harden was pissed because he didn't get the max contract, even though he never lived up to expectations. He shit the bed in the second round of the playoffs, especially in Game 6 and in Game 7, which, by the way, he did the same thing again this year for the Los Angeles Clippers. He shit the bed in Game 5, and he shit the bed in Game 6 against the Dallas Mavericks. You love to see it. But Daryl Morey has too much of a fandom for James Harden that he decided to sleep for 3 months. And then one day he woke up and he heard everything that James Harden said about him. Where James Harden was in China and he said, Daryl Morey is a liar and I will never play for a team that is ran by Daryl Morey. Something like that. So then, instead of taking action and trying to trade away James Harden immediately, it took him 3 months to do it. And instead, for 3 months, 2 months before the season started, instead of trying to make the team better, all Daryl Morey tried to do was, please, James. James, please come back. I love you, James. I can't imagine this team without you, James. We need you on this team, James. You and Joel, the dynamic duo. James. Please come back, James. That's all he did. That's all he did for 2 months. And then eventually they traded away James Harden. Now they traded away James Harden about a week into the season, I think it was. They traded him to the Los Angeles Clippers along with PJ Tucker. They got two first round picks, a second round pick, Nicholas Batum, KJ Martin, Robert Covington, and Marcus Morris, who they ended up trading at the trade deadline. And he's now playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's the James Harden trade. And Daryl Morey really didn't do much to make this team better going into this season. He decides, you know what, I got to make a move before the season starts. He goes out and he signs Mo Bamba, who is absolutely trash for this team. He is a non-factor. He stinks. He started a couple games, and he stinks. He decides to go out and sign, oh shit, I got to do something. I'm going to sign Mo Bamba. He gets Kelly Oubre on a last-minute deal for 1 year, and I guess he had an okay season. We'll talk about Kelly in a little bit when we get to this upcoming free agency. He gets Mo Bamba. He gets Kelly Oubre. He signs Kyle Lowry in a buyout deal when he gets traded from Miami to Charlotte. Charlotte buys out of his contract, and the Philadelphia 76ers pick him up. And then he goes out and he trades for Buddy Hield at the trade deadline. Now, I'm not going to put him in fault for this one. And the reason that is because you cannot blame Daryl Morey for the way Buddy Hield performed for the majority of his season in a Sixers uniform. Because Buddy Hield, when we traded for him, we thought Okay, we're getting one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. And when that time came, when the trade deadline came around, the Philadelphia 76ers, they needed somebody like Buddy Hield on the team. But they didn't do enough at the trade deadline. And when they didn't do enough, it was like, okay, they're not putting all their cards on the table because they don't know what's going on with Joel. And because Joel Embiid had just gotten meniscus surgery, he had just injured his meniscus, and he was out for 2.5 months. And you can't blame Daryl Morey for Buddy Hield because Buddy Hield playing bad on the basketball court, that's not Daryl Morey's fault. That's Buddy Hield's fault. The fact that he was not good on the basketball court, besides his first week and Game 6. So we'll talk about bringing back Buddy Hield later in the video when we get to this offseason. But we go from that. We talked about James Harden. The Sixers were cruising. They were a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. This is when Joel got injured. Joel got injured on January 30th against the Golden State Warriors, and he was out for 2.5 months. And at that point, the 76ers were the third best team in the Eastern Conference, and the team stunk around Joel Embiid, which is why I never really thought that they were going to be a championship contender, because when Joel got injured, you can see how bad this team really was. Especially on nights when Maxey was not playing, this team stinks. They'd be rolling out 38-year-old Kyle Lowry, Tobias Harris, Mo Bamba, KJ Martin, Kelly Oubre, you know the deal. Nick Batum, who was pretty good for the Sixers this season. But when Joel got hurt, you can see how bad this team was. You could see how bad they were. And they stunk. They had absolutely no offense outside of Tyrese. And they'd be lucky to get a 25-point performance out of Kelly Oubre, or a 25-point performance out of Tobias, or a spark from Buddy Hield. It'd be surprising. It would. And there was a couple losses that really frustrated the Sixers fan base. And really, if they win these 2 games, I think they're a 5th seed in the playoffs. And they're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round, who's still a very good team. But the New York Knicks are a much better team, in my opinion, than the Cleveland Cavaliers. If the Sixers don't blow a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter against a G League Memphis Grizzlies team, that really hurt us. That was the worst loss of the entire regular season, was that game against the Memphis Grizzlies, because that's a game you need to win. The Grizzlies are one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference this year. They are belittled with injuries. They're rolling out G League players out there, and you allow them to beat you in a 15-point comeback in the fourth quarter. Another one that really, really hurt this team was the game against the Los Angeles Clippers. James Harden's return to Philly, and they lost by 1. Again, double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. The Clippers got bailed out by the refs. Kelly Oubre should have been called for a foul at the end of the game. But it was also Kelly Oubre's fault that they lost, because Kelly Oubre fouled Paul George, I believe it was like 5 seconds to go. And it was horrible. He was the reason they lost that game. So you win those 2 games, and you're looking at a 5 seed against the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's how much these games meant to the Philadelphia 76ers, that they lost. And then Joel comes back in April, and they win 8 in a row, I think, to end the regular season, and everybody was excited. The Sixers are the hottest team in basketball. The Sixers are the team you don't want to play in the first round. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, it is great that the Sixers didn't lose a game when Embiid came back. Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem with all of this. They beat the OKC Thunder, who did not have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies. They beat the Spurs. They beat the Detroit Pistons. They beat the Brooklyn Nets. The only 2 good wins they had in that winning streak was on the road against the Miami Heat and at home against the Orlando Magic. So I was not moved by that 8-game winning streak because of the teams they beat. The teams that they mostly beat were garbage. They were bottom-tier teams in the NBA. So I was not really impressed with that 8-game winning streak. And then, on the last day of the season, the Sixers, they get rewarded a play-in. And they have to play, the winner of that Heat-Sixers game gets to play the Knicks in the first round. And I remember telling y'all that I would rather play the Knicks in the first round than the Milwaukee Bucks. And my God, was I stupid for saying that. Because could you imagine if the Sixers play the Bucks in the first round with Giannis injured, with Damian Lillard injured for most of the series, and with Doc Rivers on the other side? I really think the Sixers would have had a chance. I think the Sixers would have beaten the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. I think they would have beaten the Bucks. That's just me. But if Giannis and Dame both play, I think the Bucks win. But the fact that they were both injured in the first round, I think the Sixers would have beaten them. I really would. But then we get to the playoffs. They beat the Heat, play-in game, cool. They face the Knicks. They go into the playoffs as a 7 seed. They lose in 6 games. A competitive 6 games. If you're a non-Sixers or Knicks fan, this was probably your favorite playoff series to watch because every game came down to the wire. For me, it was super stressful. Anxiety was incredibly high, and every game I was a nervous wreck. And the Knicks ended up winning this series in 6 games. We know how it went by now. The Sixers got fucked in game 2 by the refs. Jalen Brunson gets a lucky bounce to cut the lead down to 2 for the Sixers. Kyle Lowry makes an inbound pass. Nick Nurse calls timeout. They miss the timeout. The whole 9 yards. You guys know what happened. So the fact that the Sixers could not take one of the first 2 games at Madison Square Garden, where Jalen Brunson was at his worst in the series, it really hurt this team. It really did. And I thought the series was over. The fact that you could not get 1 win at Madison Square Garden, even though you got fucked in game 2, you should not have 4 people at the rim and Isaiah Hartenstein comes flying in for a rebound. That should never, never, never happen in an NBA basketball game. But the Knicks win that, and I thought the series was over. I did not have any optimism for this team. I'm like, the only way I will have optimism, and I will have hope, is if they win 2 games at the Wells Fargo Center. They did not do that. They won Game 3, and they lost Game 4. They blew it in Game 4. The offense scored 16 points in the 4th quarter. Your star MVP, Joel Embiid, had 1 point in the 4th quarter, and the entire Philly media went off on Joel Embiid for the next 2 days, including myself. He stunk. The whole team stunk. But the fact that he scored 1 point in that quarter was horrible. So the Knicks win that game, okay? The Knicks win that game. Game 5, Tyrese Maxey game. Down 6 with 28 seconds to go. Tyrese Maxey saves the season for the Philadelphia 76ers. They win in overtime. Game 6 goes back to the Wells Fargo Center, and the Knicks win by 3. And look, the Sixers fought. They were down by 22 in the first quarter. They ended up taking the lead at halftime. They were up by 10 at one point in the third quarter, and it was a back-and-forth game. The Knicks were up by 8 with 3 minutes to go. It was a tied game with 14 seconds to go. And the whole message for the entire series was, we are not going to let Jalen Brunson beat us. Whatever happens, we're not letting Brunson beat us. So what do? They double-team Brunson, and Josh Hart is left wide open for 3. And he drills it. And that's how the Sixers season ends. On a Josh Hart dagger. Of all players, Josh freaking Hart ends the season for the Philadelphia 76ers. And the main reason why they lost this series, I talked about it in the Game 6 video, offensive rebounding. Offensive rebounding. The Knicks demolished the Philadelphia 76ers. They could not grab a rebound to save their life. And at the end of the day, the better team won. Unfortunately, as much as I hate the stinking Knicks, and I will be cheering for the Indiana Pacers so hard to get to the conference finals, because I do not want to watch the New York Knicks against the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. For real. But that's how the season ends. They lose in 6 games to the New York Knicks in the first round. And I said it in the Game 6 video. Now that they got past the Sixers, I actually think the Knicks are going to be in the NBA Finals this year. My prediction is Knicks-Nuggets in the finals. Nuggets lost Game 1 last night to the Timberwolves. I still think they're going to win the series in 7 games. So that's the season. Now let's talk about the off-season for the Philadelphia 76ers. And most Sixers fans are already saying that this is possibly the biggest off-season in Philadelphia 76ers history. Because for the first time in 5 years, the Sixers have cap space. The Sixers have money to spend. The Sixers have $60 million in cap space this offseason. And there's some pretty big free agent names out there. There's some players who might want to buy out of their contract and get traded. So I'm sure the Sixers are going to be keeping an eye on that one. For an example, Jimmy Butler with the Miami Heat and Brandon Ingram with the New Orleans Pelicans. But these are the free agents right now for the Philadelphia 76ers. When free agency hits, these players will be going into free agency. Tobias Harris, adios, buddy. Did absolutely nothing for this organization. Will go down as the worst contract in Philadelphia sports history. And I'm actually sickened that this team went through a full 5-year contract with Tobias Harris where they paid him $40 million a season. He stole money from the organization. Stole money. So, my man, have fun in Detroit, okay? You're gone. Kyle Lowry, Buddy Hield, Kelly Oubre, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, DeAnthony Melton, Cameron Payne, KJ Martin, and Mo Bamba. Now, for players that I would bring back, Kyle Lowry, I would not bring back Kyle Lowry. And I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I would not bring back Kyle Lowry. He's going to be 40 years old. And Tyrese Maxey's a good enough. I think I trust Tyrese Maxey as a ball handler point guard in the playoffs now. After what I saw from Game 5, yeah, I trust him. I don't think this team needs Kyle Lowry. Buddy Hield. This one is interesting because as a Sixers fan, did Buddy Hield do enough for you to want him to be back on this team? Did Game 6 convince you that the Sixers should re-sign Buddy Hield? I'll say this. Buddy Hield would be a nice depth piece to the team, but I would watch out for how much you pay him. Because if I'm Daryl Morey, I'm not willing to pay Buddy Hield $14, $13, $12 million a year. I think that's a bad contract, and I think that would be a bad contract for the team. So maybe $8 million a year for Buddy Hield, maybe on a 2-year deal. But I would watch out for how much money you spend on Buddy Hield. If you want him for 14, 30, if his asking price is too much, I would not bring him back. If it's not, then I would bring back Buddy Hield. Kelly Oubre. This is another interesting one. See, here's the thing about Kelly Oubre. I would like to see him back on the team. I would. I think Kelly Oubre's got that dog in him. I really do. Kelly Oubre's tough. He's physical. And he's got that dog. However, I would bring back Kelly Oubre as a bench player. I'm not that interested in bringing him back to be a starter on this team. So, there's that. Robert Covington, no. Nicholas Batum, I think he's going to retire this offseason. I really do. DeAnthony Melton, I would bring him back on a cheap deal. Cameron Payne, I love Cameron Payne. The man's slinging it. The man has no fear when shooting. I was actually pissed when they traded Patrick Beverley to the Bucks for Cameron Payne. That guy's an absolute disease, is Patrick Beverley, and I would bring back Cameron Payne on this team. I love Cam Payne. KJ Martin, they might bring back KJ Martin. We'll see. Mo Bamba, adios. And Paul Reed, this is another interesting one. Now, this offseason, Paul Reed signed a 3-year, $24 million deal. However, if the Sixers didn't get past the first round this year, his contract would not be guaranteed, and the Sixers would have the option to buy out of his contract, and Paul Reed would be a free agent. I would look to upgrade at a backup center. I was not impressed with what I saw from Paul Reed in the postseason. He's just too small to be a center. He's too small. And I don't think a guy like him is what the Sixers need as a backup center. Now, I understand last year Paul Reed was a fan favorite in Philadelphia, but I would not bring back Paul Reed if you want to buy out of his contract. We'll see how that goes. But now we get to the actual free agents and some of the big all-star free agents. You got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Klay Thompson, DeMar DeRozan, Tyus Jones, Miles Bridges. There's a couple other ones. Gary Harris from the Orlando Magic. Isaiah Hartenstein's a free agent, so ironic enough, maybe you can bring him as a backup center. But this is what you're looking at when you have big all-star free agents. You got LeBron, possibly Paul George, Pascal Siakam, who I think is going to re-sign with the Pacers. I said DeMar, OG Anunoby, who I think is going to re-sign with the Knicks. D'Angelo Russell's a free agent. I don't think you need him on this team. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, just said his name. So, yeah, the big free agent names this offseason is Paul George and LeBron. Now, there's possibility where the Sixers could be monitoring players that might want to ask out of their contract. For example, Jimmy Butler, if he doesn't get paid this offseason, he might want out. If Brandon Ingram doesn't get paid this offseason, I heard that he might be a possibility. My preferred player to sign is LeBron. And the easy way to do that is to draft Bronny in the NBA draft. The Sixers have the 16th overall pick and the 41st overall pick. My preference would be draft Bronny, get LeBron over here, make him restructure. Maybe don't overpay for LeBron. He's going to be 40 years old, but at the end of the day, it is fucking LeBron. He's one of the GOATs of all time. He would absolutely sell the arena out every single night. And this team needs a leader besides Joel Embiid. This team needs championship DNA. And Kyle Lowry's not enough. Could you imagine having LeBron on the Philadelphia 76ers? Our confidence would skyrocket going into next season. But what I think this organization is going to do is they are going to go all in for Paul George this season. They're going to sign Paul George. And what's not going to help this team is signing Paul George to a long-term contract. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Paul George has the same issues as Joel Embiid. Paul George, if his life was on the line, he could not stay healthy. And he stayed healthy this postseason for the Clippers, and you saw how it worked out for them. He was their best player, and they didn't get past the first round. So, that's what I think the Sixers are going to do. They're going to go all in on Paul George. And what's not going to work for this team is signing a 35-year-old Paul George to a max contract. So, this is a big offseason for the 76ers. This is truly their last chance, in my opinion, because Joel Embiid's only getting older. Joel Embiid is 30 years old. He's hurt every year. And Daryl Morey, you're on the clock. So that's all I got. That is your Sixers season review. Thank you all so much for joining. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a nice and chill week coming up. We'll be back Tuesday with episode 3 of Chopping It Up. Wednesday night, we will have AEW Dynamite. And then on Thursday is a big day because the NFL schedule gets released. So we'll be here Thursday night talking Miami Dolphins schedule. Comment down below your thoughts about the Philadelphia 76ers for this season. Hit the like button if you like what you heard from me. Follow me on Twitter, comment_Joseph, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good night. Stay safe, and as always, stay classy, and I'm out. Peace. I'm out.